Good evening. I'm Peter Pingatore. I'm the chair of the Community Preservation Committee. This is our meeting scheduled and noticed for the clerk of Town Clerk's office in Needham for April 19th, 2023. We are meeting in a hybrid format. This format is pursuant to Governor Healy's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, which I believe has been extended until March 31st of 2025, but it's in effect currently, and it allows meetings of public bodies to be conducted virtually, provided that adequate access is provided to the public. Access tonight is being provided through Zoom. You can find the Zoom address on the meeting agenda that's been posted with the clerk's office. As is our usual, we will start with a roll call attendance in order to do a tech check. And one other note is that whenever we speak, just make sure that either you state your name or I recognize you by name so that the record is clear as to who it is that is speaking, and all of our votes will be by roll call vote. Okay, so let's start with our tech check and attendance. Bob Dermody. Here. Dave Harrower. Here. Rich Foster. Present. Jean McKnight.
Here.
Joe Barnes.
Here.
And Rick Zimbo.
Here.
Let's see, do we have Laura Dorfman?
No.
And Dina Hennigan?
No.
Okay, they are absent this evening. Turning to our agenda, first item up is chair's updates. I do not have any updates. Second item up, and this I guess could fall under updates, is a discussion of the Finance Committee follow-up consultation, which lasted about 3 minutes. And what they did was that we just put them on notice that the appropriation for each of our grant articles, the Needham Housing Authority CBIT's Cook Preservation request and the request by Park and Rec for the Fazio Playground design, that those appropriations would be that the sum to fund those appropriations would be transferred from CPA free cash. And with that information, the Finance Committee quickly voted unanimously to support both of those articles. So let's see, on to our discussion on town meeting presentations and postings. Some we put together, I know I've been speaking to some of you individually. We've been, Laura's on, good.
Sorry to be late.
That's okay, Laura. Glad you're here. We just turned to the agenda item on discussion on town meeting presentations and postings. So I think what we're aiming to do is to have materials posted on our town meeting website and available for town meeting members to review prior to town meeting, and then to prepare our presentations for the floor town meeting as well. And so it obviously it's going to result in fewer questions and probably a more efficient approach at town meeting. So I guess we can go through each one. I think what we were planning on doing was just kind of workshop through and just get updates from folks, and we can just go in order, starting with Article 21. And so the two questions on the floor are, the two subjects to address are, well, actually the only subject to address is your materials for town, for the town meeting website. And we don't need to review each other's presentations. We can if we want, but that's not less important to me, and I think to us. So there's Rick's presentation.
That's not the one I want to share.
Yeah, I don't think we need to review Rick's presentation, but here's the good stuff.
That's the one.
Rick has put together, this is the material that Rick's going to post on our town meeting website. Right, Rick, why don't you take over from here?
Yeah, that's fine. This is the information. Most of it has been extracted out of the report that Cecilia put together that I believe is attached to the agenda. All of the numbers are there. They match up. And just to quickly run through, I guess I don't have control. Cecilia, you must have control of the screen, but in any event, they're just a number of slides. The first one talks about the sources of funds. The second slide talks about the current balances. Third slide just briefly goes through and talks about historically historically what, how we go about the approval process, what we do on a moving forward basis, talk about the funding allocation on the next slide. And then finally, we talk about assuming all the actions are done in accordance with our plan at town meeting. This is the post-town meeting balances. People usually ask what's left over. So that's really the presentation for posting on the website. It matches up well with the article explanation that's provided in the warrant. And it also matches up pretty much identical to, I'm not sure there's much difference between this and what was put together in the report Cecilia prepared for the committee.
Looks good.
Any question?
Yeah, if I may just check.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a great idea. I like the post-town meeting balances slide. I find that helpful, but what might we say to someone who stands up and says, all right, we got $8 million left over. Why aren't we spending it?
I was thinking the same thing.
Well, we don't have a project in front of us.
Yeah.
Good answer.
I mean,
So
that's
those-
basically it.
Or then they said, well, why don't we spend more? Why don't we give more to housing?
Well,
They didn't ask for
we're
more.
responding. Yeah, these are reserve accounts.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
basically savings accounts for applications for future requests. But that's a good
I'm
question.
thinking like a town meeting member.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, when the town meeting member stands up and asks, we're anticipating, and I'll just give you two examples. We're anticipating an application from the Housing Authority for funding for fall town meeting, and that would be covered out of the community housing bucket. And we're anticipating a request from the town for funding for the Claxton Field project, which would come out of the CPA General Reserve. So those funds would be available, and that's why we allocate the money in the buckets for that. The one thing to note, go ahead.
It just also looks good that the biggest number there is in the community housing bucket.
And I guess the third point is that we always try to keep about $2 million in that reserve account for open space.
Open space, great. Yeah.
So that's a good question. That's a good answer.
Yep.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay.
No, thank you for asking.
Yep. Okay. All right, so let's move on to Article 22.
May I request it would be great, just send those slides around to everybody. So we can
Sure.
just
Oh, yeah,
understand
we can
them.
do that. Yeah, we were gonna work, we
Yeah,
were
I
planning on
understand.
workshopping them and then send them around.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my presentation.
Don't have one.
Mine is maybe.
You need a Word doc. There it is.
It is. All right. So the narrative is basically explaining that this is a requirement to true up the accounts because we appropriate based on estimated receipts for the coming year. And so as a result of that, as a result of receiving additional funds, we need additional appropriations. We need to make additional appropriations to each of historical resources and open space. And that the committee has voted that a minimum of 20% of the actual receipts are appropriated to community housing. And so that, as a result of that, It's we've appropriated $67,464. That's the easiest way to explain it, but there's also a complicated chart that follows. If you want to get pretty wonkish about it, you can go back and look at how the calculations how we come up with the calculations for each of the amounts to be transferred into each reserve for each of the years. But what I do note in the narrative is that if you total the bottom line amount to transfer to reserve, if you total those three columns in table 1 with the three columns in table 2, you will come up with the amount that we asked for to be appropriated as part of this warrant in this warrant article, which is $134,000 and change. So I felt like I wanted to make that available to someone who wanted to actually figure out how we came up with these calculations. And there's no simple way, as near as I could tell, to actually explain it, to do the calculation. I don't have to give the detail, but there is a simple way to explain it, which is we're just trying to true it up so that each reserve account gets either 10% or 20%. Okay. Comments?
Peter, I have a question.
Yes.
It kind of goes back to the slideshow you just showed. My understanding is that's going to be posted on the website. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so are you anticipating this to be posted or not?
Yes, this to be posted.
These tables that you've got here.
Yes. Yes.
So you're gonna post this as well as your remarks?
Yes. Is that all right? Or we don't like that idea?
I don't know. And it's really a question. The way I had expected is the remarks would be just made from the podium, and in my particular case, and I'm not sure about yours, but the slides would be on the town website, and I was only planning on using them if there was a question from the audience. We could post them. I'm not sure.
Oh, so wait a minute. What are you asking me? Maybe I'm missing the question. I was thinking of just posting this on the town meeting website. It's going to be a 3/4 of a page narrative and then the two tables. And then at town meeting, I was going to have like a 3-paragraph, narrative.
Any visuals?
And I was thinking that I could have the tables in case someone asked, but this is really
esoteric.
You've seen how I struggle to get. I end up
go through this every year.
Yeah.
Does anybody ever ask any questions?
No, and in fact, most of the time it passed. Reg points out that I think it passed sometimes with unanimous consent.
And then,
But I thought that I would at least make table 1 and table 2 available in case someone asked at town meeting. So
Peter, I just didn't understand really the directions from the moderator is where I was coming from. So for the town manager, whoever put those instructions out about, this is different than what we've done in the past and the last couple of years anyways. And so that's why I thought, and please, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that the slides themselves would be posted on the town's website, and that speech that Cecilia put up initially that's my speech to town meeting. I wasn't planning on posting that. And the only time I was going to talk about the slides is if someone had a question and I'd ask that the particular slide refer people to the slide that we'd have available at town meeting. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on what I'm doing.
No, I think that you're doing that right. But I do think that there's a lot of different ways of approaching this. So he hasn't been clear on his direction.
No.
And so mine, and I would, what you did is, if I had your article, I would do exactly that, what you've done, which is post this, because the slides, you also have some bullet points in there that explain the slides really effectively. And so people can go to the website, review the slides, and hey, Laura, you want to mute that, or are you okay? Is it okay? Is it your cat?
I'm sorry, my cat's trying to eat the computer cable cord. I'm gonna mute myself now. My apologies.
It's okay.
You only said no to Peter. Like,
A little bit worse.
Wow, okay.
Okay, so.
All right, I don't mean to belabor it. I just wanted to make sure what I was doing was correct. That's all.
May I make a comment?
Yeah, sure.
So who here has read the warrant explanation?
From Mike B?
No, not the guidance, but what is actually, there's a little commentary in italics in each
For
warrant
ours?
article. Yes.
I've read,
Yeah, that's it.
but I
Right.
don't have it.
So I'm
with
just
me.
saying
I wish I had it with
that
me.
they have that, okay? You know,
Right.
a community member will read that. A presentation without the voiceover doesn't make any sense, you know, because you need the voiceover to understand, like Rick's slides and you know, so if you just have the slides and without Rick's voiceover, you know, posted, it doesn't really convey that much. On the other hand, if you have a narrative presentation without, you know, the tables, then it's the same thing. So, you know, I think you have to think about some town meeting member just encountering them out of the blue and trying to understand them.
That's a good
that way.
point. But see, but Rick's slides are they are understandable if you just look at them.
Mhm.
They are,
Right.
because he has bullet point narratives in it. It's not just a series of tables. So that's, and now I could probably turn my narrative into like, into like another slide, but you know.
My understanding was that if there
You're
were
both
slides to be
You're both
posted,
good.
we
You're
could
both- you're
post
both
that.
good.
But also if we had just backup documentation we wanted to provide town meeting, we could also post that, which is what I would think would be your documentation. But any speeches, I don't think we
Yeah.
would want to
We're
post.
not gonna, I think there are there's more than one way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that I feel comfortable with my way. I feel really comfortable with Rick's way because I think that both of them are fun.
May I share my way now? Even
Sure.
though we're not on a-
Okay, so are we okay on this? Yes? Okay, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Okay, now, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to get people's feedback on this. So I took Reg's public hearing PowerPoint that included both projects, Linden Chambers and Seabeds. I took out and made a PowerPoint of just the Seabeds project, exactly the same ones. I sent that to Cecilia to have that posted, whatever that means on the town, so someone has access to that ahead of town meeting. When I stand up at town meeting to introduce the article, I was intending to have a PowerPoint ready to go that was a even shorter version of that one. So I think it's a project that's worthy of it. It'll help when I speak. I will speak to the slides, you know, set the background. Not everybody's as familiar with it as we are. There's some great points in there that I think would be salient for the voters to know about, even though they've had access to it, but I think I should say it on the floor. But a much shorter, there's 12 slides there now. I want to cut that in half. Ballpark.
Okay, can I interrupt just for a second?
Right.
Because I want to
Yeah.
just clarify with Rick. I think that Rick should have his slides available when he does his speech, I think.
Do you mean available to turn on when asked or
Yeah.
available up and going?
The slides kind of track his speech anyway, but
Yeah.
it's up to Rick.
I'm doing a PowerPoint show. That's my intent.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's up to Rick. Either way, it's fine.
I thought the slides that he showed this evening, there were only two of them, right?
Well-
They seemed very clear, and why not?
Right.
Yeah, we already agreed.
All right, Rick, it's your choice then.
I just as soon have them available because someone will ask, I'm sure, if it even gets to that point. This one might be another one of those by unanimous consent.
It just requires a little coordination with the great people who always help us up at the front of the room who run the computers. Like, I'm going to tell them, he can have it, but we'll work it out.
This is Laura. I'm just rereading the moderator's, commentary. And he's looking for summary documents. He's, I don't think he's looking for backup detail, which is good to have, but it seems like from what he wrote, his words were summary documents.
For the for posting on the website?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at his,
Can you read that to us real quick, Laura?
yeah, hang on 1 second. Let me figure out how to do this. I'm sorry. Okay.
Just the context of the phrase summary documents, as Peter just asked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm here now. Instead of posting videos, I'm asking proponents and the finance committee to post summary materials on the town website in advance of town meeting. These materials can be PowerPoint slides or similar tools which will provide town meeting members with a summary of the presentation they will hear at live town meeting. Like the videos, these summary materials will be organized by article. The summary materials may be accompanied by supporting materials of the kind we have been posting all along. I'm just encouraging last minute distribution.
Okay, all right, that's fine. I think we're within
The four corners.
We are within 4 corners. I may shorten my narrative based on that and keep my little tables, okay? Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so you're at,
So how does that sound to people, what I described?
I think it sounds great.
Okay.
Bob, sounds good. I guess my only point would be on posting that information. I'm assuming that we're going to be posting the Q&A that Reg sent in with some additional, maybe some edits or changes or whatever.
Supplementary materials.
Yeah, so the Q&A should be posted.
Yeah.
And then, Rick, that was the one circulated to me and to the liaisons, but the entire committee hasn't seen it, but I've had a chance to review it.
Okay.
So are you going to talk about I have a comment about the Q&A. Like I have an overall concern which is that I think that we need some answer, let's see, some additional information. About the financial reorganization. We kept using that term. Okay. So we defined repositioning in the first article, and I guess here's my overall issue that I think it's glossed over, Reg, and my concern, I'll say this for the committee, my concern is that I just want to be able to put those words out there to the town meeting, which is we don't really talk, we talk about the 4% low income housing tax credit equity and how you come, what happens with the financial repositioning, but we don't really talk about the fact that there is, I guess we call him a development partner involved in this. And so I just don't want, I want us to be able, I don't want it to come as a surprise to people. I mean, I know very little, but I know enough that the development partner is a component of is basically the low income housing tax credit equity component, and that's how these repositionings are done, and that's how these redevelopments are done. But I think that they need to kind of know that, so that we don't go further down the road and people start saying, well, I was never told that. Okay.
So, Cecilia, can you scroll down that on the screen to that section?
Yeah.
And my thinking on that, Reg, is if I can, my thinking on that was, I assume that Margaret must have walked your board through that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
So
Well, it's in our 30-page document. So again,
is it in that?
I imagine there are a question that you should phrase what you need to do is to make your comment in the form of the question that needs to be answered in the fact document.
Okay.
And I believe the question is, how is, once you achieve the repositioning, how is the project going to be accomplished or something like that. And then you can answer about the tax credits and the development partner and so forth.
But
And
here's
if
the
I
thing.
didn't get it right, then you phrase it. It's the question you're
I just,
asking.
no. I just want
Yeah.
to make, what I'm more interested in, Reg, is
Hmm.
getting that information out there so that they,
I know.
and so they have a broad understanding about how, what the financial
I'm
structure
not
looks like.
disagreeing. What question are you asking to be added to the facts? It's a FAQ document. So what is the question? Or 2 or 3 questions?
Well, I would think that comes, do you think that is part of repositioning? Or is it because I was thinking that repositioning actually is the actual financial restructuring.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Repositioning is an application that goes into the feds. 3 months later, they approve it. And then you do your A&E designer services thing, where you actually do all the detailed design of what you're going to do. And then in parallel, you put an RFP out for a development partner.
Okay.
And you put the financing package together.
So, but under
I
this
think
question,
I think it's further on in the document, guys. Almost go to the last page.
Can I just jump in for a second? It's Laura. I think we need to be careful of the term repositioning
Right
to
there.
the average town meeting member may not be something they understand. Is there another word or a quick explanation that could be used?
well, they do explain, it's a difficult concept, but he does define repositioning in the second paragraph. So I guess that's another way. Is there some very simple way of explaining that? It seems like it's hard to do. All right, question from Jean.
I remember the excellent presentation that was made around this table by Margaret, it's her name. And it was news to me, but she explained it very well. And I think if people get wind of the fact that there's actually going to be a change in ownership of the property, and it's no longer going to be owned by the housing authority, it's going to be owned by this trust, I think it's a trust, and the housing authority will have a small interest in the trust, but the housing authority will have a long-term lease and will operate the property just as it always has. Some explanation like that, if I'm not explaining it right, somebody who knows, Reg could explain it better. But I think a FAQ that explains that is important to have.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think the other point with that, if I could, the other point is that I think there's a lot of people who may be concerned about the fact that who owns the property now when that takes place. Is it owned by the developer? Is it still owned by the NHA? Is it the land? Is it a land lease and then the developer owns the buildings? There's a lot of kind of nebulous questions out there. And I know there's been a couple people who have dealt with this elsewhere who, are somewhat concerned. They don't understand it.
So, we could ask if you wanted me to pose a series of questions, but it would be, does the ownership structure of the housing of the development change? Does the management structure of the development change? Those would be the questions. The answers. I once had an old trial lawyer tell me that, the questions don't matter at all. The only thing that matters is the answer. And that's in this circumstance too, Reg. The only thing that matters is the answer.
Well, we're probably not going to have time to restructure the architecture of the way this is done. So what we were all aiming towards is a fact document, and town meeting is only 10 days from now here, and they kind of want it posted yesterday. Okay. So we have to go with this Q&A approach.
Oh, no, I know that. Yeah.
Right.
But
So at the end, whether the answer, I just need to know the questions that you want to get answered, and we can work on trying to get that done by the end of the week, and so it can be posted.
All right.
a
So,
week ahead of town meeting. But, you
okay,
know,
so
it's
let's
not-
try and workshop that.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Well,
I get-
Reg, do you understand where what the questions, I mean, what we're trying to address here? I mean, it's your Q&A. And I just want to make sure that you understand
Well,
where
I've
the reluctance is from people's questions.
So, you know, I've been trying to explain all of this for a couple of years, and you know, it's like pulling a thread out of a sweater, a loose thread. You start, you know, there's an awful lot to it, and trying to explain it simply, you know, your explanation raises more questions. So it's not easy to do. I think we all know that. So you know, I think the easiest way for us to, you know, deal with this quickly, and we're talking about, you know, maybe having 24 hours of turnaround time between now and the close of business on Friday or whatever. The question, I think it would be very helpful if we frame what needs to be added in the form of 2 or 3 more questions that should be answered in this fact document.
Well,
That would be helpful to me.
Something like, does repositioning involve a change in ownership or management of the property? And then explain what the structure is. And also the reason for it, that this is the only way to be able to benefit from the federal tax credit program, which is the chief program used to support low-income housing. Something.
Let's just do the questions. Change in owners. The key things that some town meeting members might be concerned about is change of ownership, is what I'm writing down here. And you know, that can be answered. And why it exists, okay? And does it involve a change in management?
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd want to know, and what is the role of the development partner? Is that what you call them? Is that what do you call the entity, the investors, the low-income housing tax credit equity group? What do you call those people? Are they called development partners?
The development partner, you know, basically helps put the whole deal together, and sometimes operates the properties afterwards here. So there's a sort of putting of the deal together part. Again, trying to boil it down.
But I'm not.
I called it a trust. I thought I was remembering the structure.
There's an LLC, right?
LLC.
And you have general
not a
partners.
trust, it's an LLC.
And you have limited partners, and you have ownership. You know, we don't actually give up ownership.
So, and that's important.
There's a
I think when
long-term
Margaret
lease,
says there's a long lease, those are issues that are going to be negotiated, but there's usually a long lease, but we don't give up ownership of the property. Isn't that correct?
Is that right? I thought it was the opposite.
No,
I thought it was we gave up ownership and we get the lease. We are now the lessee.
No.
But you're saying it's the
other way.
opposite.
So what you have to do is convey the economic benefit to the partners who are putting the money in
So
in
the
a
housing
way that
authority-
they can then depreciate it.
Housing authority leases the property to the
Yes.
LLC.
Yes.
Oh, well, that sounds better because the
Well,
housing
that's where
authority continues to
we
own
couldn't-
the
Yes.
property.
You don't want to let go of ownership.
We couldn't fund it under CPC funds because we need to have site control. If you need to own,
We
need to
do
own the property.
We own the property and we will continue to own the property. Yeah.
Okay, that's.
I think, Reg, you just said 2 really good things that would be great for people to see in writing.
Mhm.
We own the property, we continue.
But
on
you
the
should,
property.
but I think you just want to explain who are these people? What is this development partner? And what's the risk associated with that, if any? What control do they have over the project?
Don't give me 10 questions. Yeah, give me, we're trying to get something done at the last minute
Didn't we
here.
all vet this?
Yeah.
I said, didn't we all vet this, for like 3 months?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
but we need to have it out.
We don't know what the town meeting is gonna ask. I mean, no.
No, we
Just
don't.
like, give them a 30-page.
I mean, Margaret is available to be at town meeting
I think that
and
it's,
be invited as an out-of-town.
that's true, but I
guest.
think you're gonna head off any
The
questions. by
problem
putting-
is we start putting some more details in like this, and then it generates more questions.
Well, the problem is that if you don't provide any detail, there won't be any question. And then 2 years down the road, someone's gonna say, no one ever spoke to us about that. And that's what I'm
I
trying to
think
avoid.
That's a hypothetical.
No, it's not. You know what? If it's a hypothetical, I want to head that off because people walking around saying people didn't tell this information to me leads to cynical town meeting members.
I don't think you have any basis for this hypothetical.
Reg, really?
Yes, really.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're going to continue with this exercise then. Okay. We'll have the
I'm sorry. I
questions.
didn't intend to make you angry. I'm sorry about that.
Really? You didn't think you were making me angry by dismissing my comment as having no basis
No,
in fact?
I was having a different opinion,
Okay.
Peter.
All right.
And I know you don't like that sometimes too,
Okay.
because you have shown that in previous meetings.
Okay. All right.
I have a different opinion.
Okay.
I think you're overthinking,
Sir.
in my opinion.
Sir.
Is that in my opinion?
Sir, I am not overthinking this issue, and do not describe my concern as overthinking. Okay, that is disparaging language. Do not use it. Now, I have a real concern that town meeting needs to be educated about some critical facts in connection with this development.
We were working
I
on
just
that.
want to have that information available to them.
Can you
Okay.
please put your.
We've already put the
what
questions
things in
out.
the- Are there any more questions?
I don't have any additional questions, but I would request that you make some effort at framing the questions as well, because you are the proponent. I'm identifying the issue and I'd like you to address it.
So may I respond to that comment?
Sure.
I have been putting in countless volunteer hours making this project happen, including preparing this document.
Mhm.
I had put in way more volunteer hours than anybody else I can think of that's a part of the volunteer community in Needham. And I am not trying to take this lightly, but I do reserve I have a difference of opinion, and I trying to manage this with only about 24 hours left to go.
But I would
before it's supposed to be posted yesterday to the town meeting website, according to the guidance we got from the moderator.
You had an all-day meeting with your board about repositioning, right?
Yes,
Okay. You had Margaret Moran there, correct?
yes.
She must have explained this issue to them in a way that's succinct and understandable so that a town meeting member would understand it as
No,
well.
You're wrong.
Okay,
May I explain why?
sure.
We've had 5 board training sessions over a 1.5 year period of time. And it took that long for everybody to start to get their heads wrapped around what they're doing. It's not something you can just put in a couple paragraphs or a couple fact questions and people understand. It's pretty complicated.
Well, that's not, in my mind, is not a reason not to address it at all, because it looks like you're turning a blind eye to it.
I did not say that, did I?
You all would say that.
I didn't come close to saying that.
All right.
I'm
So,
just saying that, I've been working on explaining this thing a long time. It's hard to do. It can be done, but there is I'm not trying to hide the ball on town meeting or whatever. You either commit like hours and hours and hours to understand how the whole thing hangs together, or you try to put it out there in a more of a Reader's Digest version that captures the essence of what is going on.
that's all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
I'm asking for the latter. That's it. That's all I've been asking for all along.
But I have no intention of irritating you or upsetting you or anything like that.
That's fine. Okay. Yes.
Was this question addressed in the Q&A to the CPC?
Yes, I'm looking at page 18, and it's the very last question. Is the CPC, is the low-income housing tax credit structure utilized for this project the same as one that was discussed at for the other project? And then it says yes, and then it goes on to describe the structure. And it does end with saying, so that the NHA retains ownership of the land. And it's something like that we just want to put in a Q&A.
That's all I want to do. That's it. I just wanted to I wanted to have a record out there and something that people can pivot from if they have an additional question. But I don't want us to be in a position where we haven't addressed it at all on the materials that we're putting up for town meeting.
Good, what Gene just read, we added to your Q&A, Rich?
Easily, that's what I was saying a few minutes ago. Yeah, we actually addressed most of these questions at one time or another.
Is there a reason why we can't put that document of the Q&A?
Well, we made a
Somebody's gonna
decision.
dig into it, let them dig into it.
Well,
we made a decision 2 months ago that we wanted to create a more simplified version of that. So we spent some time doing that, but you know, there is no reason otherwise.
It seems the when I think anybody hears the word ownership, whatever their level of understanding of repositioning is, et cetera, I think that's an important one. We can't do it all, I would agree. But I think what we said earlier, if it's our job, you know, as a committee to help inform town meeting as best we can with the materials we have, I think that would be one, the little I know would be important, anything to do with ownership. Think of all the residents that live there, et cetera. People, that's a key one. There's a lot of other things people aren't going to understand.
So that should be something you mentioned in your little.
Well, yeah.
I think the only
And
phrase,
also, I'm sorry.
in this answer to the question, the only phrase that I think might raise issues is it says, at the end of the 15-year tax credit compliance period, the investor member would be bought out of the partnership and the NHA would step back in as full owner. Oh, full owner? You mean up until then they're not the full owner? I think that phrase is a little tricky. And I think just the idea that it's a lease from the housing authority as owner to the partnership for 15 years.
The lease should expire.
And then when the lease expires, that's the end of it.
Just expires.
Yeah. And the whole purpose of the lease is to avail yourself of the tax credits.
Change whether you lease it or not.
Yeah. And I'd also make clear that the management remains with the housing authority throughout.
It doesn't.
I thought you said it did when we were the day-to-day management of the housing authority.
Sometimes you bring in a third-party company to operate the property.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Apparently, I don't understand this as much as I've tried.
You're making your point that you made, that you start unraveling the sweater.
Well, and I'm just trying to say, it's not, you know, it's not something that you can pick up right away.
but Rich, you have a summary, that last paragraph.
Yeah, no,
Is the last paragraph work?
You're gonna.
it does.
Happening right now.
Yeah.
So then,
Okay.
Bob does his job.
I mean, the very first thing we will do is to answer these 3 or 4 questions, is go back over what's already been answered in the Q&A.
Seems like a good place to start.
And you know, during the presentation that Margaret made, Margaret is available to be at the meeting.
At town meeting?
At town meeting.
Yep.
You know, should these questions come up, because frankly, none of us have that kind of expertise or depth. If somebody wants us to take it down to that level of depth.
And I will add right now, I am merely the MC for this event. I'm going to introduce the article in the town meeting warrant article language, show a few slides where it is. But any questions that are directed, I'll be still standing up there. I'm going to turn to Mr. Moderator and say, may I speak?
Start with me, and you know, and if I get out of my depth, you know, then,
right.
you know, that's, you know, again, it's
Okay.
pretty
Good.
complicated stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't want to miss the town meeting for the reason that Peter said, which is 2 years down the road, it'll come bite you in the ass. Use a very highly technical term here. So, and I understand that's what you're trying to say.
Okay, I don't want people to be surprised. Okay, Okay. So, okay. All right.
So really the change of ownership, the change in operating management, I think is what took you by surprise here.
As I said to
And
you,
the role of the development and the, the role.
Change of ownership, correct?
No, I'm just trying to get the points to be addressed there is, and the role of the development partner. Those are the three I'm taking away here. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
What were the three, Reg? Ownership, development partner?
How does it affect the ownership, or what, is there any change of ownership in this whole thing? How does it change the day-to-day management or the operating management after
I
repositioning?
think it's a good thing to be careful and say exactly what's going to happen.
And what is the role of the development partner?
so, and if we, what was the question and what was the answer to the last question that you answered in those?
You mean that the one that I
The one
just
that you quoted.
recited from?
Yes.
Where is that?
It is the LHTC structure, LIHTC structure utilized for this project the same as the one discussed during last week's meeting, which was the Linden Chambers, where we really got into that.
Okay.
So we'll draw from that other one. And it
Exactly.
says,
He just read it.
Yes. And yes, the preservation of seabeds away and Robert Cook envisions 4% low-income housing tax credits. The tax credit investor would be the investment partner, owning 99.99% of the partnership. The partnership doesn't own the land, we do, okay? But we then, as a 1% partner, that's the asset that we bring there. So we bring this big asset. They then bring, so let's say we bring a $20 million asset, which is this land and the buildings. Then the tax credit investor brings $20 million of tax credits, but that's real money. Ours is just like a balance sheet thing. Right. So then that 20 million you used, and I'm making numbers up when I do this, that's then what you do to put new roofs on and fix the air conditioning and everything else like that. Then you wind up with a partnership where the asset we own has been pledged to this partnership that creates an overall $40 million balance sheet, whereby, and then we take their $20 million, fix everything up. The tax credit partner says, oh, look at this. You're just a little teeny weeny bitsy housing authority. I'm not sure we trust you to be the operating partner on this because there's 1,000 complicated reports you have to do every quarter and every year and so forth. So we probably want to bring somebody with management expertise to do that, okay? And so let's go find somebody who would be part of that. And we say, well, okay, we'd like to do it ourselves, but you've got a point there because you have the money and they can take the money and give it to somebody else. And we say, well, gee, maybe we should have a nice friendly operating partner like the Cambridge Housing Authority come in and do it for us, okay? So there's that is one scenario. That's the,
it's negotiable. It's negotiable.
It's all a negotiation, that's right. Predicting how that's going to come out, we can't do. We want to retain as much control as we can, but realistically, even the Cambridge Housing Authority, when they were starting to do this in their first deals, they couldn't retain control until they got to the second or third deal. Now, the strategy is, well, with a partnership like with the Cambridge Housing Authority, who now wants to kind of expand their mission to help smaller housing authorities, be able to deal with these issues. Those of you who've dealt with banks, big banks, they're very risk averse. They want to see a nice long track record of running 4% line, tax credit projects, which we can't bring to the table ourselves. So we have to partner up with somebody who is going to then do a 2 + 2 = 5 with us.
I just, if I may, I just want to say it's confusing to use the word partner and partnership. And here in this answer, it talks about owning a certain percentage of the partnership. But you said it's not going to be a partnership or a trust. It's going to be an LLC. I just want to be careful. not to mislead people into thinking there is partnership.
But my point in saying what I just said is if we get anywhere close to having that kind of discussion at town meeting, we are doomed. I mean, you can't do it.
I think, well, I hope we can simplify it
Yeah.
without being misleading. That's all.
Yeah. So, and maybe we are doomed. I don't know. Sometimes in this project, I think we're being doomed.
I don't.
It's a complicated.
It's I do not think you're going to be doing.
If you want to say, you know, like anything, like school bonding or any of these other things, is you want to have somebody, a trusted committee like the CPC or the finance committees or the town manager's office say, you know, we looked at this in depth and we understand how it's going to work, and don't worry, it'll work fine. But, you know, if you try to explain it on town meeting floor, I don't think we're going to be able to do that. Well, even if we had Margaret there, although one of her incredible gifts, as you've all witnessed now, is she could somehow explain things in ways that, you know, in plain English, that makes sense.
Can you work with her on answering?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We work with
So
her on
that's why
everything.
don't we do that? Because I do think we need to
Every
make.
word you look at here has been reviewed by Margaret.
I do think you need to make a run at that. Okay, that's my overall comment.
So I will, you know, we'll have 3 more things to add here, and then
Okay.
and then please, anybody send me anything you sleep on overnight, you know, by tomorrow morning here.
Okay. And I'm sorry, we're creating more work for you at the last.
Can I just ask a quick question? It's Laura. I just want to, after the conversation, just kind of summarize that we're looking for Reg to clarify the ownership issue. And we're also looking to maybe make the repositioning concept a little more familiar to lay people. Is that what we're looking for Reg to do? I'm lost a little bit.
And really the overall, it's the role of the development partner and.
Okay.
Okay.
The repositioning is actually semi-unrelated to what we've just been talking about. If you look, Laura,
No, I understand, Reg, but I just
Yeah.
lay people, you know, when you hear that term, it could be a source of confusion. So it's easy to make it simple for people to understand. That's all. I understand it's not the same issue.
Yeah.
Just a quick hit, Joe here. Although we would like to avoid some of the questions, Reg, that you're saying are very, very difficult to answer, we know from past experience that there are town meeting members that really dig into the weeds. And I think we have to be ready to answer or hand the baton off to Margaret so that they can get the answers they're looking for. They're not going to be satisfied with simply just glossing over and moving on. So I think we've seen that in some of the other articles that have come to us in the past.
I've seen that too in town meeting. Yeah.
And I think that if you have Margaret available, I think that's going to help tremendously.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not answering.
All right. So, all right.
But we have a good team.
Any other comments on this, on the Q&A? All right. Any other comments on the presentations? All right. Fine. All right. So let's move on to Article 24. This is the top lot.
I don't have that one pulled up, but.
That's okay. So I had discussed with Jean ahead of time, and we were going to follow suit, which was to put up on our town meeting website the presentation that was done at the public hearing.
And this is what we mean. This is just this 4-pager that was the DeFazio Playground project. And its description of the elements of it with a couple of photos. And so that would be on the website, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. And I think it's self-explanatory. And Cecilia, will you take care? You're the one who will take care of getting it on the web.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the only thing is looking it over is I said to him, oh my goodness, what does PIP mean? They keep using an acronym. And so I had to use my phone to look it up again, poured in place, surface. But I don't think we're going to make PIP surfacing is on this, but I don't think we're going to change it. But Maybe when I make the presentation, I'll mention that, that the support in place surfacing is part of the project, just so in case anybody has any question about what that means. So all I'm going to do then at the presentation is to say pretty much what's the explanatory material now in the warrant article. I mean, I think this is going to be a popular project. It's not very expensive. It's just paying for design funds. I'd also like to have some kind of visual up there. And I was looking, I thought we had perhaps a better one than this, but it's all we have to show the location. So as we get for town meeting, just to take this that shows, you know, this is Dedham Avenue and the driveway goes in and there's a big parking lot and the tot lot is right there at the very beginning, just to the right as you enter the property. Just have something up that you point at so people know where it is who've never noticed it. Now I was also thinking some kind of photo. The PowerPoint has, it's a PowerPoint. It has, come on, I had that PowerPoint in front of me a second ago. Yeah, it has this, but it's just all part of the introductory page. I was wondering if Stacy could just provide that as a bigger photo for the, just to put up on the screen.
You could just take it and enlarge it from the original PowerPoint.
Or if you could do that, see, it's got the sign and everything. It's a nice photo. If you could just have that, can you take care of?
Yeah, I can.
Getting that. So all I have are two things to put up. That plan I showed you, which was part of their response to our questions, and a photo.
Okay.
There's the front. Oh, and I think when I can pull this out in a way that makes it bigger than it's printed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good enough. Good. Thank you.
Okay. So now let's see, we're on to our CPA plan updates.
So real quick, just the plan is tomorrow I will post the Rick's PowerPoint for Article 21, Peter's document for Article 22, the PowerPoint for Article 23, which is Seabed's Cook, and the DeFazio PowerPoint for Article 24. And then once Reg gets me the revised Q&A, that'll get posted as well. And I'll send everyone.
Article 23.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Cecilia. All right, so the CPA plan. Cecilia and I were working a little bit behind the scene. And one thing that after I went through it again, I realized that we had one appendix that we left, which is the color chart that Bob Dermody and Ricks and Bone put together a few years ago. So that's Appendix A, showing the sources and expenditures for by category. What I did was I had already included language in there to move that as a live link appendix, and so that's what we've done. And then I inserted two explanatory footnotes, two additional footnotes. First one was put in by Bob years ago, and the second one is I want to explain to the reader that the totals don't include the appropriations to the reserve accounts. And in my mind, that's important because we're appropriating money for present requests or for future requests in these reserve accounts, and they have to be used. And so I use that as a vehicle to give the current fund balances. It's a yearly document. It's going to be updated yearly, so you can just yearly update what's in the reserve accounts. So take a look at the chart, see what's been spent and appropriated, and then what's available to be spent. And then the final footnote is, and this is just one of those things that's kind of, you have to look at this document and you have to say to yourself, I don't understand, why is housing 7%? It can never be less than 10. Well, part of that is because it doesn't include the reserve account fund balance. And part of that also is because the numbers are weighted, because we appropriate the full amount of the bonded project, say it's a $16 million project, well, we appropriate that as $16 million, but we don't pay that off. We pay that off over a 30-year period.
Mhm.
So the expenditures that we made under historic and recreation, although presumably 30 years down the road, it'll all come out on the wash and even out. Right now, it's weighted. That's all. Just again, so I just want to be fair in terms of laying out that information. It's not a perfect way of communicating it, but it's a way of kind of explaining it a little further in case people have questions.
There's also a typo in the second footnote that I just noticed. That's not a real number, so I'll adjust that before I post it.
All right, that was, I think, okay.
I deleted
the two
$, sign and then I think I
2,62.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so then I think that the city was going to do a whole, what was your plan? You were doing a link to all the appendices?
Yeah, so what I did, and let me swap back over to the plan, is I put language at the very end where the appendix A was and just put appendices. And then I'm linking it to the website. And then that way, if there's any further appendices, which I can imagine there will be, they're all there. We don't have to change the plan language. And if not, then there's just the one.
Okay.
The plan that was sent to us with the agenda has, as pages 18, 19, and 20, the glossary. Is it the intention to continue to have the glossary?
We have to get that, yeah, we should get that what do we call
Yeah,
it?
we get the watermark.
Watermark off of it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I noticed
That's
that too.
what we
Yeah,
do.
we want to keep the glossary.
So what will end with
Only on
page,
the last page.
It's a separate section.
there are three pages of that glossary, right? And each one of them has the watermark.
Watermark, so we want to merge that into the document.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh,
let's see, there was one more thing I noted. On the table of contents, it says, it's the page number references, of course, and it says appendix 16. And no, wait a minute.
no, it says community housing 16.
No, I see, no, what you have, no, Jean, you're saying appendix and it says page 20, so we should strike appendix under the table of contents.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's historic
I must be
preservation and
looking at an
glossary. Yeah.
older version.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I also just noticed, I actually want to get everyone's input on this. The current members list should probably also be as an appendix. That way we can just
That's what I was
update
going to
it.
say. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that changes. Yeah, anything that changes like that.
And so we're trying, this is in terms of, we've done a little research. So some people have come in, like Joe and Rick, they came in at like our November of, let's say it's November of 21, right, meeting. But their appointment, their appointment was in June of 2024. We're trying to sync it up so that all appointments begin and expire in June. Okay. So it's June 30th.
Also, Cecilia, it's Laura. I think that I was not sworn in last year or something. There's something outstanding I have to do. I don't know if anyone else has that situation.
There's a couple, so I'm trying to figure out exactly what's missing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I thought I was done, but no, which is fine.
So, could you go to the table of contents?
Yes.
I don't know why that's different from what I printed out. I thought what I printed out was the brand new thing.
I would move the appendices to the bottom and just list the appendices, but not a page number, because they are part of the document. You just have them somewhere else.
Okay.
But the
So
page numbers
appendices,
don't
and you put them on
don't
the
match.
page number where the link is.
Do the page numbers
We're gonna have to
match?
put a page number.
Okay. All right.
Do the page
there is a
numbers
section.
match? on this
I'll
document?
double check it
Yeah,
before I
that's right.
post it.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it seems to me, if I'm looking at what you sent with the agenda,
Mhm.
and that glossary page numbers does not match what was sent.
Yeah,
with
I'll
the
double
agenda.
check with the.
Okay. Mhm. Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Cecilia? Jean? Any further, anything?
Oh,
further?
on the plan, no.
Okay, and Laura, are you okay? You're gonna say something. I just want to make sure you.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So now with that, we'll close out that document. And now we're up to the application and process updates. And what we've done there is put in, this one we put in the last of the edits. And that may be worked on again in the fall, but that's a good working document.
Yeah, I believe I have
Everyone's in.
edits.
Okay. Okay. And then spending versus appropriations. That's the 5-year spreadsheet. We're not done with that yet. That's going to have to. It's got a lot going on. We'll have that for our June meeting. It's not critical for town meeting. And the plan, where is our report? Do we have that on our agenda?
We didn't distribute it.
Okay, so that's, well, it's part of the, yeah, there we go. Our report to town.
Yeah.
Okay, that can fall under discussion on town meeting presentation. So, all right, we distributed that as part of the materials. Any comments that people can have questions? It follows the format that we've had in the past, but when do we want to post that? We want that available at town meeting, or do we want to post that sooner rather than later?
They're not wanting you to put flyers out on the table.
Yeah,
no,
so I
we
would post it.
We're going to post it prior to town meeting.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
I can post it with all the other documentation tomorrow if everyone's good with the.
Any comments?
Well done.
No, I read it. And I didn't have any comments.
Okay, good.
I thought it was great. Really did. Well done.
Okay, so then we are now. Yep.
Peter, one more thing on that. At some point in time, don't we have a status report on those projects that are outstanding? And that may not be, I mean, sometimes we get a question on those things. Yeah. As those projects close out, if all the money hasn't been spent, the balance flows back into free cash. So that's something we just ought to be aware of as we look down the road to kind of try and true up those to maximize whatever benefit we can get from free cash for next year.
Rick, didn't we talk about that we've talked about that in the past, like an update on the projects, and we were supposed to get that by something that automatically happens with the, I'm trying to remember. Does anybody remember this?
Yeah, so I have to file a report to the state on the status of all the projects. And I also meet with Dave every, I want to say August, to close out any appropriations. And so then I report back to him on if a project's done and there's turn back that he can take, then I do provide that to him.
Didn't we
so
say?
I can then provide that update to the committee as well.
Okay, I think we were trying to involve the liaisons as well, correct? So that they would stay connected with the project as it went forward and as it was being completed. We've submitted a form, I think, that had questions
That's right.
answered. Yeah.
So we
That's
have,
right.
So there's a periodic update form, right? That some of this stuff, you know what, in fact, so Cecilia, we had parked that. Mm-hmm. And here's two things that we parked: that and kind of a procedure about what to do when we get applications for the October meeting that we were going to work on really quickly after the May, we got to get through town meeting. And so those were two items that we were going to talk about. Actually, you know what? It's a little bit of inside baseball, but you and I had an email exchange and you had a plan for dealing with some of these administrative things that we're going to deal with after town meeting. So Joe, that's a good reminder. So those are two items that I can remember, but we have an email trail to see where we have a list of stuff that we were going to deal with after town meeting.
Good.
I also think, Peter, we have minutes that talk about this,
Okay.
right? We can refer back to that. We talked about this, I remember.
Okay.
Because I mean,
Right.
so, Rick's right. Somebody may ask. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, and we should. I almost feel like an update should be provided as a regular part of our reporting on to town meeting, even if it's a little bit dated. I feel like, you know, that's good transparency.
No, you're right. I don't know that we can get that together by this town meeting, but you're right.
We
And then-
can't. We can't. We can't.
But questions may arise. So let's see if we can at least scramble so that we can have information available in case the question comes up. All right, why don't we make that as a goal?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that as a goal. All right. So we'll be able to answer the question that Rick says we may get. And then
Well, you may not, yeah, Peter, you may not get it at town meeting. I'm just, in the past, we left something on the back desk. We're not going to have that now. If somebody would ask a question, for example, about the town common, Mike Fee will rule them out of order because it's not within the four corners of the warrant. So I'm not sure that we'll get many questions, but at some point, I just think it's in all fairness and with all openness, I think we need to just publish that report. And if it's in the, you know, if we do it come June, I think we're okay, you know, and we have it available for the fall town meeting.
Right, okay.
I will say, I do think we should do this in the CPC report town meeting, and definitely a more detailed one next year. But in Kate's town manager report to town meeting, she does report on all of the articles that are outstanding. So there is an update for the status of the community farm growing bed, the status of the high school tennis court. There are those updates there as well.
Good.
It's
Oh,
just
that's great, but to Rick's point, it does, there could be money, like I know the historical commission, we have a project that wasn't completed. There's money that's gonna go back into free cash, and that we now have to go request again to complete the project. So the money part, there's two pieces in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong. There's just a general update on how these funds were used and, you know, what's happened, and it'd be great to have photos, but then there's also the money piece, if there's money that comes back into free cash.
Yes,
Yeah,
no, I understand that there's two parts. I'm just saying there is a small update that is included in another document if anybody is looking for it.
That's great. And I don't know if anyone will ever ask, but I do think we should volunteer it.
Okay, yes, Jean.
I'm thinking ahead to town meeting and questions that might be asked. One question that occurs to me, the gentleman who came and talked with us from the Massachusetts Community Preservation Commission said there's no problem with funding put-in-place protective surfaces for playgrounds. If somebody asks a question like that, can I just say that that's no problem? That's a legitimate expense under the Community Preservation Act.
Yes.
Yeah, I would modify that by saying our understanding based on, you know, yeah, say that. Our understanding is that it's not a problem, that it's fundable under CPA. We've learned that from the Community Preservation Coalition. Right.
What's the name of the man who came?
Stuart Saginaw.
Oh, yeah.
SAGI.
I have his name written down elsewhere, but not in my head. Stuart Saginaw.
And you know, his phone line is always open. Jean, you want to call him up and say,
I don't think I need to call him up. He was very clear in the meeting.
I think so.
I just, but we haven't asked town council, but I wouldn't go so far as to ask town council.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now, update on our, you know, kind of administrative restructuring. I think what we're made some progress in locating a consultant for us on the financial end, in terms of we're out talking to people and coming up with a request for services. And so we probably will have some information for the committee by June. So, that's it for me. Any other items? All right.
Oh,
Yes.
League of Women Voters Night.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We got to deal with that. So now that's great.
Isn't that-
So do we have that document? Because she divided up the rooms. This is one thing I don't have in front of me. Where the information that the league provided us shows us how we group the precincts together. And so I wanted, you know, I'm on precinct I. You have that, Fred?
Oh, I didn't have a soft copy. You're talking about next Monday, right?
I'm talking about next Monday. So let's plan for that.
Yeah.
I'm precinct G.
I'm going to be there for the planning board in the room that covers precinct F and.
All right, let's
So
just,
there's precincts A, B, and C in one room.
okay,
Tripling up.
go ahead.
D and E,
Okay,
F and G,
okay,
H, I, J in the fourth room, and then a Zoom option.
okay.
And the person in the Zoom room can be in person or via Zoom.
Okay, so let's go back to what we did last year. Let's because we're in the space almost the same committee, right? So did we have Reg and did we have?
No, I floated.
Okay, I wanted to know who floated.
I
Was it just
floated because of covering the last year was the Union Chambers.
Okay, so this year you'll float on Article 20.
And we'll request that when we get to that article, that, you know, if I'm not there, I'll start. Remember, I went from room to room and room here, and then they held the questions in the particular Article 23 until I got there.
There was something about the Zoom room, though, that we took care of that. That was, does anyone recall what we did in the Zoom room?
I think I
thought that
floated.
you were there.
I floated into that as well.
You did, okay. All right, so now, is there any, Gene, let's start with you.
Otherwise, my answer is I'm D, by the way, just.
Okay, so you're D, but you're floating.
But I'm floating. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so,
I'm already going to be in the room that covers F and G for the planning board articles, which will come before the CPA articles, just before I think.
okay, fine. So you're in FG room,
Yeah.
okay? Is anyone a member of A, B, or C, precincts A, B, or C?
I am on B.
Okay, so it's Joe Barnes and Laura Dorfman. Okay, I'm in room with HIJ. Is there anyone else in HIJ? Okay, is there anyone in D and E? Okay, so now we just need a volunteer for D and E. And so that would be, so Joe, you're going to be there. So it's Bob, what?
I'm G.
So you're Bob Dermody. All right, Rick, do you feel okay about going to DE? What? But I thought Rick, you're a town meeting member. What's your precinct? Can't hear him.
He's
You're on mute.
muted.
You muted, Rick.
Not anymore. H.
Okay. All right, so you can stay there. So now, is there anyone, let's assume that, has anyone been assigned to a room? Has anyone not been assigned?
I haven't been.
Well, I'm giving you your precinct. Does anyone have a precinct that they're going to go to? Or, okay, so Dave, how about you, if you go to the room with D and E? Good. All right, so this way.
Do we have someone in the Zoom room?
Oh yeah, we should have someone in the Zoom room. Okay. All right, I'll do that. Okay.
So am I to, I'm confused. Am I to go to?
A, B, and C with me, Laura.
B, and C. Okay.
A, B, and C. Yeah.
A, B, and C. Okay.
You and I.
You can go to
Awesome.
ABC. Dave Harrow is going to go to DE. F and G is going to be Gene McKnight and Bob Germany. HIJ will be Ricks and Bone. I will do the Zoom room, and Reg will float. Okay.
So the
So when
questions come up about Article 23. So Reg Foss will address those questions, and when he appears, we'll answer your questions.
That's how we handled it last year.
Yeah.
I think it seemed to work.
Yeah, it did. So we'll send.
I'll send this list out.
And you'll send it to her, to Susan?
Yeah.
Okay, and then they'll be ready for us. They'll say, okay, they were ready for us last year. Okay, everybody feel comfortable with that assignment?
Yes.
And this is down at this is at the senior center, Peter?
It is at the senior center. What time does it start?
7:30, I think.
7:30. There's a special program for new town meeting members at 6:30 presented by the moderator, but the warrant review starts at 7:30.
Okay.
So Peter, it's Laura. I've never done this before, so I'm not sure I'm comfortable, honestly.
Loads of fun, Laura.
What do I do? Oh, I know we will.
You beat it yourself.
Okay, so what they'll do is, here's what they do. You have a facilitator in the front of the room who reads the warrant and then looks and asks if there are any questions. And then if they notice that you're in the room, you can answer the question.
They go article by article.
And they go article by article.
Okay.
Say, Article 1.
And so what? You know what you can do? You can watch Joe. Joe, can you?
I always watch Joe.
Well, we'll take it on together, Laura. We'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, you guys can work it out together. Okay.
Okay.
And the email that just went around from League of Women Voters on this emphasized that this is not a debate. This is just to answer questions for clarification.
Yes. Correct. Okay. All right. Let's have our.
Can I ask? Has everyone received the warrant in the mail?
No.
No.
I downloaded it.
It's online.
It's online, and that's how I found the ones that I needed for the finance committee.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
We meet again before town meeting.
So we're going to open town. I don't think that we need to.
No.
Okay. And so, but what we will do is on the night that we're going, we'll open the meeting. We'll have a meeting.
So we all meet up at the front table.
We meet at the front of the table, and we'll notice the meeting for that night. And so we're gonna have a formal meeting, and so we'll open the meeting, and then we're gonna adjourn, and then we're gonna get back to our chairs. Okay, just in case, cover us in case there's discussion.
Right.
Okay.
What
All right.
time is that going to be? Do we know?
Well, what we want to do is open the meeting prior to town meeting, so we get there 15 minutes before town meeting starts, and Cecilia will post the notice.
Yeah.
But just stay tuned. We're not going to go on Monday. We're not going to go on maybe we'll see. After Monday night, we'll figure it out when we're going to.
I'll post it this week for the first Monday and the first Wednesday, and then on that Wednesday, I have time to throw together another one for the following week if it goes that far.
Okay.
And do we sit at one place, or do we sit wherever? Like
Wherever you want.
How does?
Well,
Okay.
Well, hold on. Well, we want to come up to that table though. We want to open a meeting at the table up front.
Okay.
There'll be one table only, but we're gonna have to crowd in there.
Do they let us sit there while our articles are being presented up front, the way the planning board gets to?
They didn't last year, in the past.
I don't know why they didn't do that, but that really, in my mind, led to some confusion. So can we get that
in the past? I thought.
No, we didn't do that. We have not done that since the pandemic.
Oh, right.
So what I would like, I'd like to have access to the table. It led to confusion last year.
For the whole, when our articles are going up, if CPC can all sit at the table up front, yeah, I can ask
all
about
the
that.
other teams. We want to be treated fairly.
That's okay.
And it helps people
Yeah.
understand who's on the committees. And
Yeah, the planning board will
Peter?
sit down and you can have
Yeah.
a table.
Yes,
Peter?
Bill. Yes.
I don't think we have to close the meeting at the end of the first night. I think all we have to do is, we don't have to adjourn. We just have to suspend activity. And that way we don't have to reopen it before and close it at every meeting. That's what we've done. And that's what I did in the finance committee, is we opened it before town meeting. And then we just suspend until such time as we adjourn, which might be 1 or 2 nights later.
I think you have to suspend to a date certain, date and time certain. So you suspend it to Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
And then you come back on Wednesday and you only
And then they
post
open
once.
it up again, but you don't have 2
All right, okay, what,
logical meetings.
okay, so maybe,
Physical
whatever,
meetings.
so maybe you can figure that out. Okay.
no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, good. So now let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
And second by Dave Hare, okay, and let's have our vote.
Yes.
Jeremy,
yes.
Reg,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and Rick.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, thank
It
you.
doesn't get to vote to adjourn.
And